RMB is the second largest currency in trade financing. It's the sixth largest currency in world payments. It's the seventh largest currency in official reserves. RMB internationalization index increased with a growth rate of 7% from 2011 to 2014. Although RMB internationalization has achieved great progress, it still plays a minor role in international markets. RMB-denominated trade is less than 3% of total international trade, while the share of US dollar is 80%. In foreign exchange markets, the share of RMB is 1.72%, while the share of US dollar is 45%. What's more, the speed of internationalization of RMB is policy-driven as much as market-driven. The private sector demanded RMB-denominated assets in the hope of ever appreciation, which made the process of RMB internationalization much more tortuous. Next, we'll talk about problem in the course of RMB internationalization. The first is asymmetry of yuan internationalization and the resulting welfare losses to the People's Bank of China. From the table, we can say the asymmetry between yuan import settlement and yuan export settlement peaked in the fourth quarter of 2010, when the amount of RMB used for import settlement was 12 times more than that used for export settlement. Certainly, the asymmetry has been dramatically reduced since the second quarter of 2011. The asymmetry was mainly caused by RMB appreciation expectation and the existence of opportunities for exchange rate arbitrage. For example, with an undervalued exchange rate and expectations for RMB to appreciate, it is natural that foreign importers of the PRC exports are reluctant to use RMB to settle transactions, while foreign exporters are happy to accept RMB. RMB appreciation expectations no doubt have played an important role in creating asymmetry. However, more recent development shows that the asymmetry is much more than a result of RMB appreciation expectations. One of the most obvious adverse results with asymmetry is that with the same trade surplus, the People's Republic of China ends up with more foreign exchange reserves, which is what the designers of RMB internationalization originally wanted to avoid. It's easy to understand why this has happened. While the People's Republic of China continues to receive dollars from its exports, it gets fewer chances than before to spend this dollar proceeds for imports. Another adverse consequence of the asymmetry is the rising currency mismatch on China's national balance sheet. As a result of RMB import settlement in Hong Kong, China residents have increased their RMB assets, probably at the expense of their dollar assets. At the same time, China has increased its RMB liabilities and its foreign assets, mostly dollar assets. Due to the deterioration of the U.S. fiscal position and the Federal Reserve's expansionary monetary policy since the subprime crisis, China should replace dollar-denominated assets with RMB-denominated assets, as well as replace RMB-denominated liabilities with dollar-denominated liabilities. Unfortunately, RMB internationalization has achieved the opposite result. The second problem is a surge in speculative short-term capital flows. The starting point of RMB internationalization is supposed to be the use of RMB for import settlement. But in practice, many China importers didn't use RMB to pay for their imports, let alone to use the RMB for invoicing. Instead, they utilize the opportunity provided by the trade settlement scheme to conduct exchange rate arbitrage. As a result of the launch of the trade settlement scheme, an offshore RMB market known as the CNH market was created in Hong Kong, China, side by side with the onshore market, now dubbed as the CNY market. The CNH market is a free market, while the CNY market is a regulated market and tightly controlled by People's Bank of China. Hence, two RMB exchange rates coexist: an onshore CNY exchange rate and an offshore CNH exchange rate. The existence of the CNH to CNY spread creates opportunities for China's enterprises to benefit from exchange rate arbitrage. Empirical studies show that RMB import-export settlement ratio is highly correlated with the CNH-CNY spread, just as the figure shows. Since the middle of September 2011, financial conditions suddenly changed in Hong Kong, China, due to liquidity shortages caused by European sovereign debt crisis. Banks from developed countries, especially European banks with exposure in Hong Kong, China, withdraw their funds. As a result, CNH fell against the dollar, and the CNH to CNY spread turned negative. China's importers stopped buying dollars from the CNH market and returned to the CNY market. China's exporters stopped selling dollars in the CNY market and sold dollars in the CNH market instead. At the same time, because of a dramatic rise in funding costs for carry trade and the reduced attraction of holding RMB assets, Hong Kong residents started to unwind the carry trades, and some dumped their holdings of RMB assets. Statistically, the RMB import to export settlement became more balanced. It reflects the fluctuation of the moments of short-term capital flows across borders. Finally, let's make a conclusion. Since 2009, despite the significant increase in RMB trade settlements, China's trade is still largely invoiced in dollar, and RMB trade settlement is high asymmetrical. RMB internationalization hasn't achieved its original objectives, such as sheltering its export industries from exchange rate risks and reducing the holding of dollar-denominated assets to avoid capital losses on foreign exchange reserves. To a large extent, RMB appreciation helped promote RMB internationalization, while recent depreciation impeded or slowed down the process. It still takes a long way for RMB to challenge the status of US dollar in international markets.